Oh yeah, last
Like conversation.
Okay.
Like we're having a conversation. That's it. No, this verb doesn't go here. Yeah.
It's like no grammar.
It can be a Muslim term.
Okay.
Tell me your schedule and I'll set it up.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Last time we had left off on entering Mecca and what are these steps that we're supposed to do. Walillah alhamd, like we said, this will be the last discussion of ibadat. So after we finish Hajj, we're going to either, I'll give you guys a choice where we get a discussion in legal theory where we talk about usul al-fiqh. And that's basically a discussion of how to define certain terms and how to utilize them. So when you have issues concerning that is halal, haram, when transactions are nullified, when marriages are nullified, what those different things are. You have ahkam wada'iyah and you have ahkam taklifiyah. Ahkam taklifiyah is what most of us are familiar with, you know, whether it's wajib, it's halal, it's haram, etc. And then you have ahkam wada'iyah, which has to do more so in transactions and how those transactions actually play out. How rulings are formed based on like how you, if I'm given a particular verse or if I'm given a particular prophetic statement, how do I utilize that? And in a legal sense. So these things are really important to discuss and talk about. So if you guys want to shift into that and then come back to transactions, that's also a possibility. Or we can jump right into social agreements. And from those social agreements are business transactions and marriage, right? Those are the two big things when we talk about social transactions and agreement. Because we said in fiqh, generally we have three major categories. What were those major categories?
Worship,
ibadat, good.
commercial
Transactions, mu'amalat, yeah.
Judiciary.
And judiciary and jinayat. So these are the three general categories that we deal with in fiqh. We'll be finishing up ibadat and then moving into inshallah mu'amalat, which is again those social transactions, whether they be business transactions or whether they be personal transactions. And then finally is judiciary, and that has to do with government impositions, whether it be corporal or capital punishment. So when we enter Mecca, the first type or the first place that we stop obviously is Masjid al-Haram. From Masjid al-Haram, we said that these are the different places and the different gates to come in from. This is Bab Bani Shayba. This is where the Prophet ﷺ actually entered from. Obviously, Masjid al-Haram was not exactly like this during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. What's actually interesting is if you go back to a lot of the historical works between Safa and Marwa, it wasn't strange to have houses over here. Like so this just imagine this whole area just kind of being open, and then you kind of have houses here that you're kind of navigating between to go and make to do your sa'i. All of this now has obviously been expanded upon. The Tawaf itself, and this is where we're moving into the closer area, and we can use our model that has been presented today, alhamdulillah. So if I make Tawaf just like this, is my Tawaf valid? Well, that's clockwise. That's the first problem, right? So, but if I make Tawaf immediately like this, is my Tawaf valid? It doesn't matter, whatever Tawaf you want it to be. If I start here from the black stone and I go around like this, is my Tawaf valid? Or I just go and do it, right? So Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. I start, I raise my hands, right? I have wudu, I have fulfilled all the conditions. I'm wearing my haram. I got my shoulder uncovered. I'm ready. I'm doing ramal. You know what I mean? So I'm going around. So my Tawaf is good or no? It's not a trick question. Well, it actually is kind of a trick question. Huh? My intention is there. If I'm looking at the Kaaba, I don't have intention, I got bigger problems. Right? What else?
Did you start at the right corner?
Here it is. Here's the black stone.
Well, there should be steps before those. If you're doing Hajj, we're talking about Hajj. Right?
So the Hajj, this is for the one who's either the mutamatti' or the muqarin, right? So both of these, they would start off and they would do tawaf and sa'i. Even the mufrad, even the person who's doing ifrad, he can do this also, right? Because he can do a sa'i early instead of having to wait and to do it later versus the one who's qarin. So over here, he's starting here. There's only one problem in this scenario. There's only one problem with this tawaf. What is that? I don't have a model for the Hijr Ismail, right? So the Hijr Ismail over here, right? So the Hijr Ismail is what? Is that considered, that's actually considered part of the Kaaba. It's considered part of the Kaaba. So if I'm like, yeah, like these suckers, you know what I mean? Like and I cut across and I come through, my tawaf would not be valid. Why? Because I'm actually cutting through the Kaaba. It would be the same as me going like this, going through the door. Or where's the okay? All right. Yeah, I'm just like making up doors, right? So like going through the door here. There's actually a door on the other side. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but they've sealed it off now. But the door was like on this side somewhere. But it would be the same thing as me coming here, like coming through this door and then coming out here. And again, so my tawaf would not be valid because tawaf has to be around the entirety of the Kaaba. Why wasn't it built on its original foundation? So if we say that this is all considered inside, why did the Prophet ﷺ not put it back on its original foundation? Why did he leave it open the way it is?
He didn't want to cause fitna.
Right. So he said to Aisha, he said, we're still close to what? We're still close to Jahiliyyah, right? We're still close to the period of ignorance. I don't want to start imposing too many changes on the people. And I don't want people to start getting uncomfortable. This is something that they're used to. This is something that they've seen, and this is continuing until now. So, but what advantage is there of leaving this space open, even today? So if we say that the space is open right here, what is the advantage of that? So how many people do they let inside the Kaaba? It's like a handful of people. Like, they don't let too many people in. They'll let like the cleaners in when it's time to go. There'll be certain officials, like government officials and stuff. Other guests, they'll be allowed to come into it as well. For the rest of us, like we don't really get that opportunity. So what's the next best thing? Praying in here, right? Praying in here, because praying over here is like praying inside the Kaaba.
I know praying in the Haram, it's always 100,000.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there anything inside?
There's no extra reward for praying inside. The only advantage is that, so if we're actually praying, I wonder what's inside this, right? So if oh, that's okay, interesting. So if you pray inside, what direction would I pray? I could pray in any direction, right? I could pray in any direction. So I can just choose a wall, and I can pray in that direction, and that's not a problem. That's not an issue.
What is like your maqam to be able to be invited in
It's political position. That's all. It's not like any type of religious position. If you have some type of political influence, or you're an official, or you're a delegate, those are usually ones that are invited in, or somebody who has a relationship with one of the royal family. Yes.
When you go, you call this the
Hijr Ismail. Yeah.
Hijr Ismail.
Yeah.
So is it mandatory to go in there?
No, it's not.
Because it's like a big fight to go in there.
Sometimes, yeah, I mean,
If it's crowded, it's hard to go in there.
Unfortunately, like a lot of stuff, it's like a big fight. I just unplug the HDMI and plug it back in.
But especially for women.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get in there.
Yeah.
Almost got stepped on for some big tricks.
Yeah. So I mean, every ethnicity has a very unique way of dealing with the tawaf. And because people like ethnically are of different sizes too, so you have some people who are larger, some people who are smaller. My most interesting interactions have always been with the Nigerians, with the Malaysians, and with the Turks. So the Malaysians are like really small, like in general. So like their women always be like elbowing, and like, so you get like I mean, like they had the elbow technique to get by you, and you just feel like what's going on, And then the Nigerians, they would do ramal. It doesn't matter how busy the Kaaba is. And like these guys, mashallah, man, they're like 6'6", 6'4", you know what I mean? And they're just all, you know what I mean? Like, and they're just moving through the crowd, and like, there's nothing you could do about it. They're just huge guys, all lined up, holding each other's shoulders, just going around. And the Turks are just generally just bigger. They're stockier. So, it's another group of people. But you have, what's amazing is that, America, yeah, it is a melting pot for sure. You do see different ethnicities, and you do see different people from different parts of the world. What's interesting about going to Mecca is like you see all parts of the Muslim world, right? And that's not, you don't necessarily experience that over here, but you definitely can and will experience. Why does this keep doing that? But okay, all right. Can you just unplug the HDMI and plug it back in? So what happens is that you see all of these different types of people, and from all different parts of the world. It really is amazing. And everybody's there just to do the same thing. Everybody's there to worship Allah. Everybody's there to perform their Hajj or Umrah. So what are the conditions for the tawaf? We said that each of these, minus the seventh one, it has a correlation with the conditions for prayer. So why did the Hanbalis put a condition, like why did they put similar conditions or parallel conditions to prayer for the tawaf? Is there a reason? Can you think of a reason? Yeah.
Tawaf is like the
Is salah, ahsant, right? So the Prophet ﷺ, when he said to his companions, he said, tawaf ka salah, he said the tawaf is like the ritual prayer, it is like the salah. Except the only difference he even said is what? Illa abaha kalam fi, that it is allowed to speak, to have conversation during the tawaf versus the regular prayer. Am I allowed to be like, so how's your day? Right? Like, I can't have conversation during the salah. This is something that the Prophet ﷺ prohibited, but during tawaf, it is okay to have that. So this is why you'll have the Hanabila having parallel conditions with the tawaf, because they said it is like, because it's like the prayer, they tried putting equivalency to that. The intention, condition, the time, meaning that there are specific times that you have to do it. The time you do it for, specifically for Hajj, because you can't do Hajj, you can't do tawaf before. If you want to do tawaf al-ifada, you cannot do it before the 10th. You have to do it on the 10th or after. Doing tawaf anti-clockwise, this is because you have to face you're not facing the qibla, but you have to face, there's a direction that you have to face, right? Our left shoulder has to face the qibla. Ritual purity, being on tahara, no physical impurity on the body, your aura has to be covered, and this is the additional one that you have to do it 7 times, right? You have to do it 7 times. Starting tawaf, I think we did this last time, right? Or no? We did? Okay. But this is how you start the tawaf. This is the tawaf area, and we had talked about this before, right? This is Hijr Ismail, as I'm sure all of you are familiar with. We had talked about the different parts of the Kaaba. If you want to run through them real quickly, number 1 is what? The black stone. Number 2? 2 is right here. Yeah. Forgot your glasses on. Lost that. May Allah replace them with something better. So number 2 is what? That's the door. That's the door of the Kaaba. And number 3 is? Right. Gutter is it's a very, not the term I would use, but this is called the mizab. It's basically the rain spout, which is colloquially, we would call it a gutter. This is the Shadrawan, which is like the buttress, like it's like the support of the Kaaba. 5, Hijr Ismail. 6, or 6 right here. What is this? This is this space right here between the black stone and the door. You guys know what this is called? It's called the Multazim. 7, I hope everybody knows what this is. This is Maqam Ibrahim. Number 8 here. I think this is pointing to the cloth or no, Rukn al-Hajar, right? So it's pointing to actually this entire side. And then this is Rukn al-Yamani here. 10, this is Rukn al-Shami, like because this faces Sham. 11 is Rukn al-Iraqi, because it faces Iraq. And 12 is the cover. It's pointing to the cover of the Kaaba. You guys know, they make a new cover every year? Yeah. They make a new cover every year. There's a factory specifically for it's called Kiswat al-Kaaba. If you guys ever get a chance to go on like Umrah, they take you on a tour and you can actually go inside and see how they do it. In like here, it's very extravagant. A lot of the pieces are handmade and hand stitched. They actually include gold threads and whatnot. So it's
I believe the mosque in Houston has one of the kiswas.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. So getting pieces of it, like it gets cut up, sometimes it gets distributed. One of the most recent cases I can think of is where the kiswa was actually used. Our used kiswa piece was given to Erdogan's mom when she passed away. So when she passed away, I think the king sent a piece for her burial, for her casket to be covered in. So it's used as an honorary means, an honorary way. They lift this up during Ramadan. They actually lift it up during Ramadan. Does anyone know why? There's just too many people, and people just start like they start pulling on the cloth, and it's there are actually like rings down here that hold the cloth taut, and so that people can't take away. But taking away, this is daily, maintained daily. You have a guy going around cutting the threads off of it. They actually do a really good job in maintaining it.
But what you say about them cutting? What's the reason for that?
So what happens is the threads start coming loose, right? You know, it's cloth, and then it's constantly under pressure, and it's taut, and there's people like always like, you could, if you look at a picture, like a clear picture of the Kaaba, you will see a discoloration between here and here. So like from here upward, it's like one color, and then from here downward, it's one color. I don't know if you guys have noticed it. It's because of like the hands, like the oils off people's hands, like they're always just like constantly touching it. And like, I mean, obviously seeking blessing from the Kaaba is not a big deal. It's not a problem. The Prophet ﷺ, and he sought barakah from it. But in this is lifted up. Then during Ramadan and during Hajj, there's just too many people. It becomes very difficult to maintain. They wash the inside occasionally. And it's like an event. It's like a proper event where they go in and they wash it out, and you know, people go to see, they make an announcement that the Kaaba is going to be washed, and then people go and wash it. They watch the washing. Yes.
One more thing, Allah was how they apply perfume.
Mhm.
The Kaaba.
Yeah. So it's which is actually really interesting. They're constantly perfuming it, and you can actually go buy the perfume. It's called Misk al-Kaaba. And it's the scent that they use to perfume the Kaaba with. And you'll see that the guys are like, he's with like a rag, and he's like rubbing it into the stone, and they go around to maintain that smell. They used to have a brown line here coming from the black stone. It's defunct. They've removed it since then. It's all solid now. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think like the stuff that they use to clean it, like you can like smell like nice things from it.
Yeah. I mean, you can smell the cleaning solution. It's constantly cleaning. For the entirety of the haram is marble, like the entirety of it. They only put out the carpets like occasionally for like salawat and things like that, but in general, it's almost always marble, and it is rare to almost never that you will even feel dust on it, even though it's in the middle of a desert, right? Because they're just constantly cleaning it. They're constantly cleaning it. They're constantly dumping it. You have entire teams that are dedicated to the haram area. The haram has its own HVAC plant, like all of the entire country can shut down, but it has an independent generator power plant for heating and for air conditioning. I mean, obviously they don't need heating too often, but the air conditioning for sure. It really is amazing. This was Tawaf al-Qudum, right? When an individual first comes, we had talked about that. What he's supposed to say between the two stones, when you complete the Tawaf, what you're supposed to do, and the Sa'i. So the Sa'i, again, this is still within the same structure. We're still at Masjid al-Haram. We haven't left yet. So what he's supposed to do is he's supposed to go to Safa. Safa is the mountain or the hill that is closest to the Kaaba. Just the closest to the Kaaba. He would go there. He climbs it, he does takbir, says Allahu Akbar, Tahleer, La ilaha illallah, and then you make dua, and he begins his sa'i. Right, he begins his sa'i, and his sa'i, he's going to walk toward Marwa. He's going to walk toward Marwa until he reaches the flag. So what's interesting that even during the time of Ibn Qudama, I think he died six something, they had markers back then, right? They had markers back then. Obviously, we don't have flags anymore. You guys know what they have now? They actually have laser lights. Like, so it's really interesting. Before it was like fluorescent lights, and while I was there, they actually were transitioning into this like laser light thing. Like I got to see it. It's nice. I have a picture. Actually, I had a picture where we were running too, but I mean I had a video, but my friend lost it. So you walk until you reach this flag, and then you walk briskly at that point. Why? So between these two markers, basically it's between Safa and Marwa. On the way to Marwa, there's a space where you run, and then you stop running when it gets to the end, and then you continue on to Marwa. And on the way back, you're going to walk to that. And that space it's actually closer to Safa. It's actually closer to Safa. It's not right in the middle. It's closer to Safa. Why? Why is that space there? Or why do we run? Or why do we walk briskly? Yeah, it's Isti'amat Hajar alayhi salam, right? So a lot of the manasik, or a lot of the rites and rituals of Hajj are taken from Ibrahim and Hajar. So you proceed to Marwa. So like if this is Safa, we don't have any models for Safa and Marwa, but like if this is Safa and that's Marwa, right? This would be one, right? This would be one, and then going back would be two, right? This is two. What's really interesting is that you have people who They come to their own conclusions and then they ask. So they and they run the whole thing. So there's this one guy, I remember he went and he asked the Sheikh, he's like, Sheikh, so how do you do this? And he was like, just one. He was like, oh man, I had it all wrong. He's like, how did you do it? He thought 7 times was 1.
Oh, no.
So he did it 49 times.
Oh.
And then you have people who double it, right? So they think the going and the coming is 1 time. And I'm talking, it's like in Safa Marwa, they're not close to each other. You're talking about 7 rounds. It'll take me, if I do it relatively quickly, I'll say like maybe between like about a half hour, 40 minutes. So it's not, what I mean? Like I'm walking briskly, I'm trying to finish up. So it's a good distance. It's a good distance between each other. So this is an overview. I couldn't get a better overhead modern picture of the haram, but this is the best I can do. Can you just hit the lights? There, it's by the front door. So this is all of the new development. And this is the latest picture I could find. This is, this is what? This looks interesting, right? It's a giant walkway. So this is most likely what? This is Safa and Marwa. Which one is Safa and which one's Marwa?
The closest one is Safa.
Yeah, this is Safa.
And
This is Marwa. Safa is actually bigger. It's actually a bigger mountain. Marwa is actually smaller. So these are the two. This is Safa and Marwa. This entire ring was expanded so that the Tawaf area, the Mataf area is bigger. This was the first edition that was made. This edition is called Tawsit Malik Fahd. This was done under King Fahd. He did this expansion here. And then this expansion is called Tawsit Malik Abdullah. This is the Abdullah expansion. But all of this now is so everything back here has been destroyed. Everything in this direction was destroyed. And then this one, they've just completely built up. All of these buildings and these buildings, these are all brand new. When I was there about 5 years ago, this was relatively complete. And then this is the next stage that they're actually working on. And in this, you guys know what's here? Like, why they don't expand in this direction? So over here, they don't expand in this direction. No, it's the King's Palace. So, so I think they expanded it like 20 feet, like they went in. But in this, the clock tower is here, right? So over here, this door is Bab Malik Abdul Aziz. This is Bab Fahd. No, this is Bab Malik Abdul Aziz. I'm sorry. This is Bab al-Umrah. I don't remember. This is Bab Malik Abdul Aziz. And then there were 2 gates here that they've knocked down to put in this expansion. You can turn the lights back on. Any questions on this? It's free. But I mean, it's totally different from when I was there. So the sa'i, this is the sa'i. I don't know how new this picture is, but they actually doubled the sa'i width. This was done, I want to say 8 years ago. Yeah, they did an expansion of the Masa. Just to increase the capacity to allow more people to actually go back and forth and to make sa'i.
This is the area where they had trampolines.
No, that's in Mina. And we'll get there. We haven't finished the Umrah portion yet. But so there is a basement. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So there's a basement. There's a ground floor. There's a second floor, and then you can make it on the roof. So that all of this you can. They have multiple levels that you can actually make it on. I used to make it in the basement because it was the coolest. It was like it was like temperature wise, it was just easier. No, Hira is like it's out of this. It's not even nearby. If I had to I'm wondering if I have a map of Mecca that I can share. I'll try to see if I can find one. But this, you can see the construction had first started. Remember that expansion I showed you here? So this is the footprint of that expansion. Okay, so that's where they started expanding it. This was a big issue about, like, when they started doing this expansion, you had, like, I think over I think about 70% of the clergy that sat on the scholarly councils, they were against the expansion. But the king, he did it anyway. Yeah.
Where's the actual well? The Zamzam?
Okay, so the Zamzam well was right. So this is, I want to say it was here. You could actually go down before. So what they did was the well was like right here. And if you look at old pictures, if you guys have any old pictures of Mecca, you will see a structure, right? There's Maqam Ibrahim and there's another structure that's like parallel with it. That structure was you actually went and they had like cups hanging and you'd have to like, you know, pull up the Zamzam and you would drink it. Now that what they've done is they had a pump here. You could actually go downstairs and it's pumped. There's specific stations where it's pumped to. And it's available throughout the haram. So they have like these coolers that are constantly replaced. You know, people, you know, obviously the people drink the Zamzam and these coolers are constantly replaced. But yeah, I believe it was here, if I remember correctly. When I made Umrah in 2001, yeah, it was still there. So we actually we were able to go downstairs and you can go and see the pump where they pumped the Zamzam. No, they've covered it now. Now it's just completely covered. But I mean, it was dangerous too because it was always wet. You know, I mean, like, you know, and there were marble stairs and people would get hurt. Yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking, like, with all this expansion around it, I mean, Kaaba will always be the Kaaba, but like, do you still feel like connected to it? Like, you feel
Sure. So anything that we do, regardless of how luxurious things are or how they perceive, taqwa will always be an individual thing. And that's important to keep in mind. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you know, Hajj, they have all these buffets and they do all this and blah, blah, blah. Okay. I mean, if you went for the buffets, then that's you. When I made Hajj with Dar es Salaam, and I was like in the executive group, they had me hosting them. They had like lobster tail and like, you know, like steak and like, I mean, I was living it up. But the thing is, those things were happening in lull times. So like when we were staying in the hotel, but at the end of the day, when you actually get to the Kaaba, it's amazing. It just really is. When I would be like upset or if I was down or if things like really weren't working my way, I would just like hop in a taxi and you just go and the kind of like the moment you step on the marble, everything kind of falls away and it just feels so insignificant when you're there. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to know that my first experience. I don't know anybody else, but the Marwa and Safa, in my brain, I was thinking of two
Mountains, yeah.
And then when you get there and there's just all this
tile,
lights,
yeah.
I'm like, what is and it's all blocked off.
Yeah.
So all you see is a portion.
Yeah. So
it's waxed over,
I have a
so people don't steal from
so people no, it definitely has changed, and it's like preventing people from vandalism.
Yeah.
It's a real problem, you know, and when you have so many people, you can't control it. It's not easy.
What is that wax on the mountain?
So basically what they did is like, I'm sure you guys have seen it here. Whenever you have an overhang, have you seen like they cover the rock face with like concrete? Have you seen that at all? No. But the reason they do it, like even if you go driving here, basically what happens, they do it because they don't want the rocks to fall. So what they did over there is they actually covered the mountain itself with concrete. Yeah. And the reason that they did that is because people were like, you know, they're chipping away at the rock and they're like, you know, taking it home, and you can't. Like people are going to be people, you know, and you just have to, you know, you got to do the best that you can with it. And that's what they did. They actually, not only did they concrete it, they put like some kind of glaze. Yeah. You know, there's a glaze over it, so like it's completely smooth. You know, there's nothing you can do about it.
But you're right.
Yeah.
So that part to me was like shocking. Like I was like, where are the mountains? And then, but getting to the Kaaba was very. Yeah,
it really is amazing. And a lot of people are like, oh, you know, Makkah, you know, it's so different from Medina. I was like, yeah, because there's so much stuff you have to do, right? Like you have to you make Tawaf and make sure you're like behind Maqam Ibrahim, and then you're doing Sa'i, and there's so many things that you have to do, and there's so many events that take place that you're just focused on, like, I just need to get this done, you know, and this is what I need to do. And then you have people making multiple umrahs. There's just so much to do there. Versus Masjid Nabawi, what do I have to do? I just go pray, I pray, send salam upon the Prophet ﷺ. But there's no obligatory actions that are extraordinary that I have to do there. Versus here, it's a constant buzz. Like there's a constant buzz. People are coming in all times of day and night, making tawaf and making sa'i. It really is. It's a beautiful experience. But here it is. So it's such a bad picture. But yeah.
How's the noise, the constant construction?
It depends on when you go. So what had happened was that I want to say 3 years ago and before, it was constantly noisy because they're constantly they're breaking into the mountain. Sometimes you'd hear dynamite in the distance, and they're just constantly under construction. Then after that, it got significantly quieter when there was a shift in power. So what happened was that when Abdullah died, there was a shift to Salman, and Salman started shifting a lot of the construction over to his son's company, because most of the country was run by Bin Laden Construction. And yes, the infamous Bin Laden was part of that family. So he didn't take his share in it, but the company had a very close relationship with the monarchy, and they were doing a lot of the construction projects. When the construction project shifted, the other thing that happened was that the price of oil plummeted. So when the price of oil plummeted, they couldn't keep the projects going. It became very challenging. It became very problematic. Even now, and I didn't want to stray too much into like politics, but what had happened was that even now they've removed a lot of the subsidies. The gas prices have quadrupled in the past 3 years, and not because of inflation, but because they've removed the subsidies. Electricity prices have gone up significantly. When I was there, it was like 25 cents a gallon for gas. Now it's similar to here. It's not very different. So prices have jumped up significantly because the subsidies, government was paying for everything. So this is the green lights between Safa and Marwa. Safa would be behind us, and then Marwa is there on the other side. But basically, you would start here, and you would end here. That's how it is now. They've just come up with like a laser grid matrix, LED type thing. This is Safa. So Safa is actually a little bit bigger than Marwa. Or is it Marwa that's bigger? I don't remember. But anyway, it's enclosed. What they've done now is not only did they cement this and glaze it, they actually put a glass barrier around it. They're like they didn't want anyone like getting near it. Yeah, it's like you know what, you're just not even gonna have access anymore. And getting to here, there's like an incline, right? So it's not like a huge incline, but there's like a slight incline that goes, and that'll take you up to the space. So after completing the sa'i, the umrah is complete. At this point, the only thing I have to do now is what? Yep, I have to either I can shave or I can shorten. Most scholars will prefer you to shorten. Why? Because you're about to make Hajj, right? You're about to make Hajj. So if you are mutamatta', then you shorten your hair. Otherwise, the Qaran and the Mufrid, they will continue in their state of ihram, right? They haven't completed their Hajj, right? They haven't completed their Hajj. They've just started.
Well, for women though, do they
Yeah.
just cut their hair?
Yeah, so they just take a portion of their hair. So the Hajj. So this is the sequence of events. Interestingly enough, I did include this because Ibn Qudama, what does he mention at the end? After Hajj, what should a person do? So it shows nobody's reading the book. Visit the grave of the Prophet ﷺ. Right. This is what Ibn Qudama he closes with. The day of Tarwiyah. So this is the day of storing water. This is the day before Arafah. Right. Yom Tarwiyah is the day before Arafah. It's called Tarwiyah because it's a time to rest and relax and prepare for the coming days. Right. The more difficult days are going to be coming up. In this day, the only thing you have to do is you would take ihram and then head to Mina. This is the first day of Hajj, this day is sunnah. It is not necessary to do this day. You can go straight to Arafah the next day. You don't have to do this day. But this is again just to kind of prepare for the upcoming Hajj. You pray all of the prayers, but you shorten them, but you do not combine them. You pray Dhuhr at Dhuhr time, Asr at Asr time, Maghrib at Maghrib time, etc. You should pray 5 prayers here. You should pray 5 prayers here from Dhuhr until Fajr. And then after Fajr, you prepare to go to Arafah. Yeah, so the Hanafis, they would say don't shorten the prayers. You actually pray the complete prayers. The next step is Arafah. So the Yom al-Tarwiyah was the first day. Then you would go to Arafah. So on the day of Arafah, Dhuhr and Asr are combined after the zenith. So when the sun is at its height, this is where the Prophet ﷺ gave the khutbah of Arafah. So he gave the khutbah of Arafah at this time. Then Dhuhr and Asr came in, he combined them. And after he combined them outside of Arafah, in Wadi Urna, right? In Wadi Urana. And then he came into Arafah and he went to Jabal Arafah. This is done with 1 adhan and 2 iqamas. Then at that point, because we're praying outside, at this point we would enter Arafah. Is it okay to pray inside Arafah? Absolutely, it's not a problem. If that's the case, you don't have to go anywhere. You just stay where they are. Most people will pray inside of Arafah. So he would go preferably where the Prophet ﷺ went. Where did he go? First, he climbed Jabal Rahmah, or what is known as Jabal Arafah. He gave his talk, and then he descended the mountain, and he made dua until Maghrib. So he ﷺ himself stood. You can stand, you can sit. It's usually really hot. They have like the sprinkler system that's constantly running, so that there's some humidity in the air, and like it brings a little bit of coolness. You make dua until sunset. They've actually planted trees in the area too. Otherwise, it was just a barren plain. This is the dua that he ﷺ said, that this is the dua of the Anbiya that made Hajj. When they said, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulk wa lahul hamd wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. That there is no God but Allah, alone without partners. To him belong dominion and praise, and in his hands is all goodness, and he is capable of all things. And then he leaves after sunset. So once the sun sets, at this point, he leaves for the next station, which is Mustarifah. If in the madhāhib, if he leaves before Maghrib, he actually has to slaughter, but his Hajj is still correct. There are 2 paths that the Prophet ﷺ took. There's Tariq al-Dab, I think that's the way that he ﷺ got to Arafah, and then Tariq Ma'zamin, that was the way that he went back. Okay, so here. This is Masjid Namira right here. So you see the boundary? The boundary actually goes diagonally through the masjid. So I think the second Hajj I made, I actually got in, because even getting in is a challenge. But we got in and we prayed here. We prayed in the Wadi. It's all flat now. They've actually leveled all this land. There's no more of a valley. And you pray here. You pray Dhuhr and Asr here. And then after Salah, you have to come in so that you actually enter Arafah. And there are signs inside the masjid. There are actually signs inside the masjid telling you that this is outside of Arafah and this is inside Arafah. And then this is Jabal Arafah, or what is known as Jabal Rahmah. Yes?
Is there any wisdom or reasoning this being first in this part and then entering Arafah?
So, Wallahu Alam, it would seem that the Prophet ﷺ meant to reserve Arafah as a place of dua, specifically. And he, in order to give it that sanctity, he prayed outside. Praying outside and then giving the sanctity, saying that, hey, listen, what we're about to do, because all he did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in this entire time was dua, right? He just gave them a motivational talk to start off. He, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, descended, he was facing the Qibla, and he made dua the entire time. And that could be the reason, and Allah knows best. The next stage is Mustarifah. Mustarifah is a giant parking lot with a bunch of bathrooms. Like that's all it is today. You won't find any structures or any tents in there except for officials and politicians. So here he would combine and shorten Maghrib and Isha. The main idea for Mustarifah is to rest for the remainder of the walk. Because as you can see here, there's another map we'll get to, inshallah. So if he's healthy and capable and alone, he would stay until Fajr. The women and the unhealthy, or those who are incapable or have some type of handicap, they are allowed to leave halfway through the night. And if you are their host, so if a husband is with his wife, he can also leave. He can also leave because he is accompanying his wife. You should pray Fajr while it's still dark, meaning that you pray Fajr when it first comes in. And then he goes to Mash'ar al-Haram and he makes dua. Mash'ar al-Haram is a specific place inside Mustarifah. So then he would stay there. So basically they pray Fajr, they move to this place, then they stay there and they leave before sunrise. And this is the dua that is recommended to say in the madhāhib. This is not authentically ascribed to the Prophet ﷺ or to any of the companions, but it is dua, right? So in dua, there is a lot of leeway for making it. The important thing is that it is an expression to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next stage is now from Mustarifah, you go to stone. From Mustarifah, you go to stone. So if you look here, right here, this is actually the haram boundary. Okay? This is actually the haram boundary. Yes, that's right. So this is actually the haram boundary, meaning that this is the haram sanctuary. All of this is the haram sanctuary. Arafah is outside of Mecca. Arafah is actually outside of Mecca. And in Jahiliyyah, before Islam, the people of Mecca, they would actually stop here. They wouldn't go into Arafah. So when Islam came and people were leaving and they were going to Arafah, it was something that was new. It was something that was different for them. This place is called Wadi Muhsar. It's called Muhsar because this is where Abraha's army was stopped. Right? So this is where the elephants stopped and they refused to continue forward. It's at this point where it's recommended to actually speed up. It is a part of Mustarifah. It is a part of Mustarifah. And then after Mustarifah and Mina are directly connected. But Arafah and Mustarifah, there's a gap, but Mustarifah and Mina are connected to each other. And then here are the Jamarat. So what's happening here on the day of Arafah, we're here, and then we're moving to Mustarifah, we're resting. Halfway through the night or after Fajr, depending on when you are, then you would walk directly to the Jamarat, to where you would go to stone. And you would stone the last one, which is Jamrat al-Aqaba or Jamrat al-Kubra.
What's the distance?
I think from here to Arafah, I think it's like 5 kilometers. Yeah. The problem isn't the distance, the problem is the people. So the pathway, I want to say it's like 1.5 times this room, like the width. The problem is that people, they set up their camps along the path. So when they set up their camps along the path, this isn't a problem. Like over here, it's not a problem because nobody's going to stay here. So the movement of the traffic here is very smooth. The moment you get into Mustarifah, some people, they just settle, right? Because they're like, okay, I'm tired, and I got to get going tomorrow. So like right here at the entrance, they'll start setting their stuff down. So the pathway that was like, maybe 250 feet wide has now become about 15. So you have this huge bottleneck and, it becomes very challenging to move forward. So something that would take maybe an hour walk, it ends up being like 3. There is, but the security is more concerned with the movement of vehicles than it is with the movement of people. Because you're talking about, there's about 3 or 4 main roads that move between Mustarifah and Arafah. And they move at different places. There's also the train that moves on this side. So there's the train here, and then there's the different roads that go back and forth. And then finally is the day of Eid. So you have the day of Arafah, and then following the day of Arafah, remember we're out of Mustarifah, we're going to do our final stoning. He does Rami of Jamrat al-Aqaba or Jamrat al-Kubra. This is the last one. They're all in a row. So as I'm walking, the closest one to Mecca, the closest one to the Kaaba is going to be the biggest, is going to be called Jamrat al-Kubra or the big Jamrah. They're all the same size, right? So even if you looked at them, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between the big Jamrah and the small Jamrah. They're all the same size. They're just called that. Those are the names that they're called, representative of what Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam faced when he is the one who actually threw the stones at them. So you have Jamrat al-Sughra, Jamrat al-Wusta, and Jamrat al-Kubra. You have the small Jamra, you have the middle Jamra, and you have the big Jamra. So these are the three Jamras that you're there. The last one is called Jamrat al-Kubra. So that is the one that you actually go to stone. After leaving Mustarifah, you're going to go straight there. You're going to throw 7 pebbles, and you're going to continue on. So here you
So
can.
are you provided the pebbles?
No, you have.
back,
So
or-
my suggestion would be is when you guys are in Mustarifah, collect your stones in Mustarifah. It's the easiest because getting stones in Mina is very challenging. It is complete. It is all paved and it has the tents. Mustarifah is empty. Mustarifah is an empty space, so you can use them again. I think there's a lot of khilaf on reusing pebbles. Yeah, but when you're here, it. So those you can't do for sure, because you can't do it even if you wanted to, because this is just a giant well. What happens is like they hit the wall, and then they fall into this. This is like from a straight on angle. This is about I would say about 50 feet wide. 50, yeah, like 50 to 100 maybe even, like, yeah, like 2 rooms. Yeah, it's about 2 rooms wide. Like, so this is looking at it, it's about 10 feet wide, and then you're talking about like maybe like 100 feet deep, and it's like I would say maybe 20 feet high. So it's a wall, like it's a giant wall that you're stoning at. Can you guys see the ones in the distance? But like you can start seeing, like, so here and here, those are the other 2 Jamras, but they're all the same width. And what happens is that you stone, right? So you're throwing the stones here, and they fall into this pit here, and then they're collected. It actually sounds like rain. So when you go and like you hear like, because everybody's like throwing their stones. I made the mistake the first year I made Hajj of standing right here, and I'm pretty tall, so I got stoned. I was hit by a few stones. The following years, I made my throwing from here. And alhamdulillah, it was much better. I didn't get hit. I didn't get hit with anyone. What's that? Yeah. No.
How come everyone's not circumferencing the entire thing?
So.
Like where you're standing, why is that?
No, because people, as soon as they get to, like, so the thing is, like, as soon as you get to it, like, people get excited and they start throwing, right? They start throwing. Yeah. So like, so this is like, so just imagine like all of the crowds are coming in this way, right? They're coming in this direction. And what happens is like, okay, as soon as you see it, you're like, okay, man, I got, you know what I mean? Like you're like, oh, okay, like, wait, like what's going on? This, I would recommend like just going in the back, and it clears up over here. You have like a lot of traffic in this initial space because everybody's really excited. You could tell who's tired because some people are just like, they just get there and they just see all the people and they're just like, just like throwing at a distance. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. So this is based off the story of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, that when he was on his way to sacrifice Ismail, he was stopped 3 times. And the reason that this is called small, middle, and big is because Shaitan appeared to Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam in 3 different forms. He appeared to him in the form of a child, he appeared to him in the form of a middle-aged man, and he appeared to him in the form of an elderly man. And this is where the names came from. Now, it didn't come from the size, it came from the age. And in order to shoo him away, what did he do? He threw these pebbles to shoo these individuals away. And this is what it happened and what happened there.
So when they hit you with the stones,
Yeah.
pebbles, you have to get more pebbles?
We'll talk about that. So that's actually interesting. Like, what if my rocks don't make it? Like, if my rocks don't make it, like, is there a penalty that's involved? Yes.
I heard even technically you could bring just stones from here, from America, and bring it to.
No, absolutely. Like, they just have to be the right size. I mean, I think the customs might be like, what, like, like, bro, it's like, yeah, it's crazy. The number of people they have to process, it's insanity. But yeah, so that's the, and Allah knows best, but that is the reason that this sunnah was taken up. If you guys get a chance, look at the old videos of how they stoned, and it's chaos. It's just, I don't even know how they stoned before the system was put in place. When I arrived and I did my first Hajj, this was just opened. Like this was the year that it opened, like the year that I arrived. So I don't even know about the old stoning. The way it's set up right now, you can only move in one direction. You cannot go back. If you try to turn around, they have guards stationed about every 10 to 15 feet, and they'll be like, no, keep going. Like you can only move in one direction. You can't move, cannot go backward. If you look at the old videos, you have people coming in from every single direction. You're like, that's how Stampede happened. Because people are just coming in from all over the place, and they're converging on this place versus of everybody walking in the same direction and moving in the same direction. So after the individual throws, so this is Jamrat al-Kubra. After you do that stoning, you would slaughter. And if you're doing tamattu or you're doing Qiran, then he shaves his head, and he is now out of at-tahallul al-awwal. He has to do all of these things for the Hanafis and the Ḥanbalis in order for him to be out of that. If he does 2 out of these 3, so if he stones and he shaves, then he can take off his ihram, or if he shaves and he slaughters, he can take off his ihram, or if he just stones by himself, the Malikis, they say that's enough and you can get out of ihram at that point. Versus this opinion, which says you have to do all 3. After that, he goes and he makes tawaf, and this is called tawaf al-ifada. This is the tawaf of the Hajj, okay? So this is the tawaf that an individual needs to perform for the Hajj, and it's going to be the same way that was done before, except I'm now out of ihram, right? I'm not wearing ihram anymore, so I can go ahead and make it normally. So I would do it without ramal ittiba, like, so the ibit is the armpit, and that's why it's called ittiba. And then he would perform sa'i. And this is for the mutamatti'. Why? Because he made umrah before, and this sa'i is going to be the sa'i of Hajj for him. The qarin and the mufrad, they don't have to make it if they already made it before. They only have to make tawaf. Then now, after he performs this tawaf, he is completely out of ihram, and he can resume relations with his family. At this point, it is recommended to drink zamzam, to drink to his fill, and to make dua. And this is the dua that is in the book. Again, this is not something that is authentically established on the Prophet ﷺ, but because it is dua, there is a lot of leeway, and there's a lot of creative licensure, or there's a lot of creative license when it comes to dua, when it comes to adhkar. But it's nice. It is a beautiful dua. It really is a beautiful dua. Now you have to stay in Mina. So we've gone from Mustarifah, we've stoned, we made tawaf. Now we just go and hang out in Mina for the next couple days. And Mina is large, like it's really big. Practical suggestions for anybody that, and there's a couple of problems too, even logistically from the government. I don't know why they haven't updated this, but basically if you go into Mina, Mina is zoned off. It's zoned off, and each zone there's a zone number and there's a tent area number. If you guys, and when you guys go, inshallah, for Hajj, and you get lost, just keep an eye on those, right? So if you just look up and you'll see 2 numbers. You'll see the area number and you'll see you'll see the zone number and you'll see the area number. Keep an eye on those. The problem with that is that doesn't match with the maps that they have available. The only way to match that is to actually get the maps that the Cub Scouts give you. So they're like these Saudi Cub Scouts that are around, and they're just handing out maps to people. If you ever get a chance, just grab one of the maps. The numbers on that map actually correspond with those, but the giant printed ones that they have on the way, yeah, it doesn't make sense. Like those do not correspond. I don't know why. Does it make any sense? It's like, obviously you have everything zoned, it's just a matter of putting them up, but I guess they're like, people don't use them anyway. So it's actually, people were really surprised when it was so easy for me to find them. And because I'd just be like, hey, just look up, can you look up, and you just tell me the 2 numbers, and, we had the map, and then we would just go, and they'd be like,
My
This
sister
place
and
is
her
huge, yeah.
husband went,
Yeah.
and he went. His friends, they were just like a couple tents over,
Yeah.
and he went to have food or
Yeah, yeah.
meeting with them.
They
and
they
it
never
took
saw each
12
other
hours
again.
to
Yeah.
find where he had to go.
Yeah, so the other problem with that, and one of the reasons that it's not so easy to get, a lot of the pathways in Mina, some of them are one way, right? So you have there are one-way paths, there are service roads. They close off the gates to entrances to certain places. You can't just walk through the tents. And the reason that they have these gates is because everybody's part of a group. And if we start letting like 20 people in, we've advocated 20 spaces in this tent, and you are all of a sudden you have like 350 people. It's just not going to work. But that's the iqama. We'll stop here inshallah, and then we'll continue next week. بإذن الله تعالى. والله أعلم. وصلى الله على خير خلق نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.